Welcome to the Daily Breaking News YouTube channel. Major General DPR, a high-ranking officer, was killed at the morning base. The deceased rank was Major General. During the attack on one of the Donbass cities, he was protected by Ukrainian army artillery. Artillery of the Ukrainian armed forces, they assassinated the commander of the DPR, so-called 1st Army Corps, Roman Kutuzov, in the Donbass on June 5th. Dmitry Ivanov, an officer of the Ukrainian Armed Forces Marine Corps, shared this information on social media. Over 200 killed an amazing bird, DPR. Roman Kutuzov, the first act's leader, is a full-fledged major general. According to a Ukrainian Marine, he became famous as a guy who was particularly fond of Mr. Zhukov's ways and so hurled flesh into combat like meat. According to Ivanov, on June 5th, Kutuzov issued the 1st and 100th Brigades a suicidal order to invade a hamlet in the Donetsk area. The troops were either not in a rush or even scored on instructions. It's unclear, but Ronko was obliged to spearhead the assault after arriving at the front line. He looks stunning on a white horse, exactly like Cornless in camouflage, except more so. As a consequence, our artwork was sent in a bag. You're quite attractive. Ivanov writes in the DPR format. They began to write about the death of a high-ranking Republican officer. It is important, according to French President Emmanuel Macron, that Russia not be humiliated. The French President, Emmanuel Macron, emphasized that it is vital not to embarrass and humiliate Russia in order to find a diplomatic settlement when the war in Ukraine ends. He said he expects Paris will act as a go-between. We must not insult Russia in order to create a diplomatic escape route when the time comes. Ramp Macro said that I informed him that I was about to accomplish something significant for himself and his people. He went on to explain that he had informed him that he had made a mistake during his discussions with Putin, and that he had been admonished for not traveling to Ukraine for political support, as other EU leaders had done. He did not object to going. Major General Kaymat Badashev was seen on camera just before his death after his Su-25 ground attack aircraft was damaged by an anti-aircraft missile in Ukraine. Today, a video of the dying moments of the 63-year-old Russian general killed by Ukrainian forces was released. Major General Kaymat Badashev's 9 million-pound jet was damaged by a surface-to-air missile while flying in a low-flying two-shit formation over the morning base location. According to a report about his funeral in Kommersant, Russia, Badashev was shot down in late May while attempting to assist Russian ground soldiers in escaping a siege. It was struck low over Ukraine and did not launch in time before collapsing. The Major General is thought to be the highest-ranking Air Force fatality in Ukraine, while Russian forces have lost at least 9 generals in the fight. A military analyst discovered a video of Badashev's final flight. The Russian media reported on Rob Lee's funeral. The 63-year-old jet pilot had already retired before returning to the front lines. Dmitry Medvedev, the Russian Security Council's vice chairman, talked to Al Jazeera. Medvedev warned Moscow would target decision-making centers if Kiev used weapons purchased from the U.S. to strike Russian territory. According to the Russian news agency, Medvedev, Russia's former president and deputy head of the Russian Security Council, discussed the armaments that the United States will transfer to Ukraine. Medvedev stated that if such weapons are deployed on Russian soil, our country's military forces will be forced to use them. To attack the decision-making centers, it should be realized that the final decision-making centers are not even on Kiev's land. As a result, it is unquestionably a threat that must be considered. Last week, U.S. Vice President Joe Biden penned an essay for the New York Times headlined America's Do's and Don'ts in Ukraine, noting that the Russian-Ukraine war has reached its 4th month. According to Biden, the Ukrainian people astonished Russia with their sacrifices, tenacity, and victories at the front, inspiring the whole world. Noting that other countries contribute both military, humanitarian, and financial help to Ukraine, he said, Biden articulated the United States' position on the conflict. The U.S. has a clear goal: a democratic, independent, sovereign, and affluent Ukraine capable of defending itself against future threats. We desire it. He said that Biden said that Ukraine's President Vladimir Zelensky was right when he said that democracy would win in the end. Conscripted troops fighting for Russia and Ukraine have mutinied on video, claiming they were brought to the front lines without equipment, medicine, or food. The troops, who claim to be from the so-called Donbass People's Republic's 113th Rifle Unit, claim to have been fighting for months without sufficient equipment or medical attention. Their leader claims that these are soldiers with serious medical ailments who should have been able to go. Instead, the man was thrown into the fray alongside caregivers and parents with young children. He claims that the higher authority interprets our objections as sabotage. But what do you gain by sending your men to die? The film was released amid an intense and violent conflict between Ukraine and Russia in Donbass, which includes Donetsk. The unit in the video is believed to be stationed at Kherson, an occupied city located hundreds of kilometers to the southwest. The commander can be heard explaining on the video that our company, which consisted of the 5th Infantry Battalion of the 113th Infantry Regiment, was on the front lines in Ukraine's Kherson area. During that time, the personnel conquered cold and hunger, and we did so without material help, medical supplies, or food for an extended length of time. Our unit was mobilized without any medical checks, and there are members of our unit who should not have been mobilized under Donetsk People's Republic law. Some of our staff suffer from chronic conditions, and others serve as caregivers for people suffering from mental problems. Many issues arise for individuals who are fathers to children, especially given the length of our prolonged presence on the front lines. Command ignores these problems. He then speaks individually to troops who express their worries but claim their leaders are ignoring them. Our objections were regarded as sabotage by the higher authorities. Respect your officers, he advises. What is the point of sending your men to die? Ukraine's military forces destroyed 2 occupying landing boats. Where did they go and why were they hidden? 2 Russian invaders' high-speed landing boats were destroyed on June 1st. The Russians transported their wreckage to the captured Crimea via the Dnieperbug estuary with the intention of restoring them. The Operations Command South has reported this. In the Dnieperbug estuary, the Russian invaders secreted 2 high-speed landing boats ready for sabotage and surveillance missions. The ships were destroyed in whole by rocket and artillery units of Ukraine's armed forces in the southern direction of the front. Ukraine's military forces destroyed 1 anti-aircraft and 1 self-propelled artillery platform for T-72 tanks and armored vehicles on Wednesday. 3 vehicles, 3 drones, and 3 field ammo points are available. Because the occupying soldiers on the southern borders are having difficulty replenishing their forces to form fresh strike groups, the Russians are attempting to compensate for the loss of forces by air and artillery fire. An enemy Mi-8 helicopter launches an attack against Ukrainian defenses. There were no injuries. The unmanned surveillance aircraft that collected data from the skies over the Mykolaiv region were shot down by Ukrainian anti-aircraft missile batteries before they could report it. Nikol was once again targeted by Pion heavy gun armament and the Georgian multiple launch rocket system. Cluster bombs devastated industrial infrastructure, while 203 rounds impacted residential neighborhoods, killing 1 person and injuring at least 3 more. The threat of missile assaults from the sea, air, and temporarily seized land continues.